Infosec Skills is releasing a new free challenge every month with 3 hands-on labs to put your cyber skills to the test. It's November, and with the colder weather and shorter days coming, we're burrowing deep into insecure networks to practice with the tools and techniques used by expert penetration testers worldwide. Challenge 1, you'll get authentic hands-on experience using a variety of vulnerability scanning tools, the same type of tools that pen testers use to expedite processes so they can focus on target-specific tasks. Challenge 2, you'll leverage a client-side code injection attack to take over a victim's browser. And for your top-level challenge, you'll enter our Purple Team cyber range to exploit local files and perform remote code execution. Complete all 3 challenges, download your certificate of completion, upload it to LinkedIn, and tag Infosec for your chance to win a $100 Amazon gift card, an Infosec hoodie, and a 1-year subscription to Infosec Skills so you can keep on learning. Just go to infosecinstitute.com/challenge and kickstart your cybersecurity skills today. Today on Cyberwork, I have a great talk with John Bambenek of Netenrich and Bambenek Consulting about threat research, intelligence analytics, why the same security problems are so evergreen, and the importance of pitching in just a little bit extra of your time and talents to make the world a bit better than you found it. Great talk today. That's coming up today on Cyberwork. Welcome to this week's episode of the Cyberwork with Infosec podcast. Each week, we talk with a different industry thought leader about cybersecurity trends, the way those trends affect the work of Infosec professionals, and offer tips for those breaking in or moving up the ladder in the cybersecurity industry. As an experienced global cybersecurity expert and researcher, John Bambenek oversees threat intelligence, research, and modeling at Netenrich. For more than 20 years, John has advised Fortune 500 companies and government agencies on threat research, incident response, and SOC operations. He investigated major cyber threats and criminal organizations while coordinating with U.S. and foreign law enforcement entities. John is currently an incident handler at the SANS Internet Storm Center and president of Bambenek Consulting. He is an admired industry speaker known for presenting at RSA, Black Hat, DEF CON, ShmooCon, and various other conferences. So as we can see from John's bio, John has spent his career steeped in all things threat intelligence, threat research, threat modeling, intelligence analytics, and more. So we're going to talk about some of the threats on the horizon, what's keeping him awake these days, and his recommendations to turn the tides. John, welcome to Cyberwork.
Thanks for having me and for that great introduction.
Very glad to have you here. So we always like to take the temperature of our guests by understanding a bit how they got interested. Where did you first get interested in computers and tech, and specifically in cybersecurity? Because I see you were an undergraduate in astrophysics. So right. When did you make the jump over to computer science, cybersecurity?
Well, that's actually an interesting story. So at 6 years old, my father got a computer, a TI-99, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
How. Yeah. Okay.
I know.
So basically a keyboard you plug into a TV, didn't have floppy disk, had a cassette tape. So I had to index everything by little tick marks on the cassette player. And I would write, just miscellaneous computer programs. Back in the day, they had little computer programming magazines, right?
Yes.
Like that magazine or whatever. It's like, I'll make this game, make this game.
Spend 15 hours writing code so that you can make a little man walk across the screen. And
exactly right.
but fun.
Way
fun.
No, it was a great time. There are 2 things that got me into security. One is, probably a lot of people, listening, right, do video games.
Yep.
And the most annoying thing for me to do, I like RPGs where there's kind of a plot, but the most annoying thing for me is just grinding to get whatever you need. So I just like to skip again. Let's move the plot line along. So go into a hex editor, start flipping bits to add gold or better swords or whatever, right? So, cheating in video games was my gateway drug to malware reverse engineering, right? Pre-high school, really, right? So learning, there's a difference between little Indian and big Indian and how things go and numbers rotate over.
Was that something that you learned sort of instinctively? Were you just sort of like breaking it, putting back together, or were you sort of looking into sort of like hacker magazines or things like that?
No, I mean, this is before then, right? I mean, it was say date myself. You're talking like mid 80s. Yep. At that point, right? So, I mean, they kind of existed. I just didn't know where to find them, right? I mean, later in like high school, I figured out BBSs and a little bit farther along, so like genetically, I come from a family of lawyers and petty criminals.
Okay.
So I'll find a loophole in anything, right?
Yeah,
I mean, there's just no hope. Like, thou shalt not commit murder. I can find like 7 loopholes off the top of my head.
Right.
So
okay.
I really had no hope. So part of it is just second nature of just finding the path of least resistance, which probably made me a pain in the ass of a kid to raise. And I have sympathy for my parents now that I have 6 of my own, which all have various iterations of my own personality challenges. And I probably had that coming. So, and then another aspect that is, I'm not entirely sure how I got into this, but is like 10, 11 years old, was making extra money by selling bootleg software.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. You know, so behind the public library or whatever, it's like, hey, would you like some Corel WordPerfect?
Yeah.
Right.
Masking tape over the notch in the floppy disk.
Yeah.
And you're on your way.
The masking tape. Right. And there was a whole thing. Right. So, you know, I was breaking copyright before it was cool. You know, and it turned out cheating.
And back when it was really easy too.
Well, right. Yeah. Now with online verification, right? There's remote servers doing all the license verification, which actually is a very useful tool for law enforcement, because now I know buying and selling. You know, so all of that, coincidentally, you know, my parents probably thought I was on track to be a degenerate of some kind, and it turned out to be a really lucrative career. So I may not be empowered by technology, but I am enriched by it.
Well, let's talk about that moment. I mean, maybe there's not much to it, but did you have one of those moments? We've had numerous guests who have been walked off their high school campus, college campus for hacking into a place that they should not have been, and had that moment where they said, "Okay, this is not for me," or you know, it was a matter of I hacked into it because I wanted to see if I could hack into it. I wasn't looking to be malicious. But did you have the sort of petty criminal versus white hat sort of discussion with yourself at some point, or was it always like, oh, I'm not going to do that?
I'm more inclined to mischief, right, than anything else. So like anything that I've ever done that could be mapped to criminality, right, was mischievous in orientation, right? You know, I helped fix the computers at the high school because like at that point it's the early 90s. So like, you know, Geek Squad wasn't a thing, you know, but may have engaged in some levels of mischief during class. It was a Catholic high school. They kicked me out. I had a conversation with the dean who had no idea what the hell I was doing. He just said, stop disrupting class. And I was like, okay, that's fair. And then eventually I got bored with high school and just really wasn't going, but I was getting A's and B's, so nobody could really say anything about it. I want to say twice in college, the university tried to call the FBI, or they did call the FBI on me, that I heard about later. But the FBI didn't want anything to do with it because it's mischievous oriented, right? I had a friend who left the terminal open. So I modified his .logout script to log him back in. So something annoying enough to like get your attention, but not annoying enough to really dive deep into it. And it just escalated to absurd proportions. And then, you know, ran for student government on the platform to dissolve it, but emailed the entire campus. And they said, oh, you're DOSing our mail servers. Yeah, no. So I got lucky, right? Because I said at that mid 90s, you know, many names that people recognize in security have been on the business end of aggressive use of the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. And just, there's no good reason why I got lucky. It's just the field office I was in and the U.S. attorney, I don't even know if the U.S. attorney was ever questioned, was just like, this is just not something that's interesting to me. Right. So, you know, I didn't get the Kevin Mitnick treatment or the Aaron Schwartz treatment.
They looked at, they used their very important context clues to see that you were not going for it.
So, you know, I've always kind of erred on the side of do no harm, right? Mischief and pranks is fair game, but anytime I found vulnerabilities or O-days, I report it to software vendors. I want nothing to do with that vulnerability exploit market, because we see where it's going with NSO and dark matter and others, right? It's, you know, we could say, hey, I'm compromising terrorists to save people. And then the next day, those tools are used to vivisect a journalist in an embassy. Right? I've got enough problems come the end of my life. I don't need that on my conscience.
No, absolutely perfect. Perfectly put. So moving on to some of your different job roles, you've had a number of jobs with similar titles and presumably similar responsibilities. So for our listeners, many of whom are attempting to find their career paths for the first time, can you tell me about some of the distinctions between security researcher, threat researcher, and threat analyst?
Largely it kind of depends on context of job, right?
Okay.
The first 10 years of my career, security research was more of a hobby. It's like, where are vulnerabilities and how to make things more secure?
Okay.
Just at a higher level general thing of say OWASP, right? Is a good security research outfit of let's figure out how to make web apps not suck because, I have enough work to do without yet another SQL injection vulnerability.
Yes.
Threat research is what are the criminals doing? Right. And how you can defend against that specifically versus, say, hardening infrastructure, though they feed into each other a little bit. It's, some measure of my time is trying to get people actually arrested and convicted. It's very rare because of the international limitations of law enforcement. But sometimes there's some success right there. Yeah. So, threat analysis is, hey, I'm doing it inside of a company. What's coming after me? Threat research. Evil vendor land, right, is just what are bad guys doing generally, and what can I do to either put stuff into my product to protect my customers, or I try to give a fair bit outwards also because, hey, there's lots of vendors out there, but at a certain point we need to protect broader society too. So there's lots of my personal data and threat research that, for instance, goes into Quad 9s. To just provide free DNS filtering to anybody who points their DNS resolver at Quad 9s. Okay. Could I monetize? I do monetize it. Could I monetize it more? Sure. Yeah. But until we provide security for the 95% of the world that isn't protected by a SOC, it's all kind of academic, once it gets in the enterprise environment. We see that in the work from home reality is if I compromise somebody who's a remote worker, I can pivot into corporate infrastructure fairly easy. Hopefully I'll detect it then, but you've already got a foothold.
Yeah. Now, can you talk about how those job titles differ in their responsibilities, or more to the point, I guess, what types of experience or preparation? If one of those three, like people say, I really want to learn, security researcher or threat researcher, like how similar are the skill sets in those three types of jobs, and how fluid are people who can sort of move between them, or do you have to have sort of three buckets of knowledge?
I wouldn't say it's three buckets of knowledge. They kind of built into each other, right? There's lots of people talking about, your kind of security career path. And like I said, teaching at a university, right? I deal with this with undergrads is, how do you go from point A to point B? And people talk about, okay, let's talk about threat intelligence. Could you do that as an entry-level job? Kinda. But you need the understanding of how technology works, right? And to get an idea. The same is true for forensics, right? People, I want to go into forensics, and there's a huge need for it, and it's very lucrative. And I could teach somebody how to use a Celebrite in a month, or a week-long class. But that doesn't mean they understand what's going on. It means they know how to use the tool. Yes, and that is kind of a fundamental problem with just generally of how we structure our industry. We teach people on tools. So I would say if you want to be, while there's a big gap of trained professionals, it almost doesn't matter. You could pick whatever path you want and have some baseline of skills, and you could figure it out. But to be truly successful, it's, now doing, threat intelligence work is like the security analysis and research I did 10, 15 years ago. Helps that because I understand, how Windows internals works and how network security works. And, I might have to sit there and look at a cheat sheet, but I can figure out how packets are structured, in Wireshark or TCP. And there's a wide variety of other things like not in threat intelligence work. It's actually kind of understanding some of the processes of how intelligence analysis works in the intelligence community and some of the geopolitical realities that go into why we're seeing certain type of cyber attacks and that ebb and flow, and economics and philosophy, right? I've gotten more philosophical as I've half a degree in a master's in theology that I've never finished, right? People sit there and say, hey, why can't we fix things in security? Well, the fundamental problem in cybersecurity is it's not a technical problem. People have been killing and stealing since the dawn of our recorded history. We just can do it at greater distance and scale with technology. I can try to mitigate it and minimize it, hopefully create some things that could detect problems, but I can't stop the criminal problem, right? Because it's, it's depressing to say it's inherent in our nature, but it's kind of inherent in our nature, right? So the way we architect our tech stack, really just lends itself to lots of criminality.
Yeah.
So it's, people get to burnout in security when they get mid-career and they realize is we're not really solving problems. We're pushing bits around. We might minimize some risks here or there, but fundamentally, I don't think anything's really changed in 30 years except the scale of the problem, the dollars lost. And now, instead of in the 90s, we talked about the dystopian where you can kill people with hacking. We're here today. You kick over a hospital with ransomware, and all of a sudden, people can't arrange life-saving care at the speed with which is necessary to sustain life.
Yes.
Or self-driving cars that can be manipulated to drive over pedestrians because it thinks it's a crosswalk.
Right.
We're building the dystopian future that we all talked about in the 90s in hacker magazines. And apparently nobody thought to say, hey, we saw this 20 years ago, how to stop this in the 90s. Now we're just in a world where we've got to minimize risk, which is a nice insurance euphemism for keeping the death and mayhem to financially acceptable levels.
Yeah. Ray Bradbury said, I don't write to predict the future. I write to prevent the future.
Exactly. Well, the future happens anyway.
The future comes whether you want it or not. I stand
upon the shoulders of history saying stop, and they're still marching on anyway.
All right. So on a slightly lighter note, in your introduction, under your areas of expertise, there was a title that caught my eye. You describe yourself as an artisanal malware curator. So what does that mean? What is your interest in unusual types of malware?
So probably like most people in the industry, I get the term that's bandied about as neurodivergent is I have real problems with boredom, is that I cause all sorts of problems when I get bored. So I just need new things, right? There's lots of commodity malware we see every day, right? I don't need another report on Dridex. Or ICE ID or whatever, right? There's new indicators, great, but it's known. I like finding unknown and new stuff. And when I figure it out, then I want to find more unknown or new stuff. And when I get stagnant, then, like I said, then I create problems. So, it's better to, find new things. And that's part of the genesis. And then there's the inherent sarcasm of our industry, right? Of how we title things, right? The more depressing thing I could say is I'm a digital janitor, right?
Sure.
But artisanal malware curator sounds important, important to the laity, so to speak.
Yeah, I can almost smell the cinnamon coming off of it or something. Like it smells. It's very appealing. So does that mean that you're trying to like write unusual malware to see if it can do something different, or are you just sort of researching out in the field for like the strangest malware that you can find and then sort of like reporting your findings?
Finding strange and new things, really. I don't so much write. There's an infinite number of ways to commit violence. There's only a finite ways to protect life. And I focus on the other end of that equation. I like finding new stuff because, like I said, once something's known, hopefully you can automate a defense against it. Now, I think there's an inherent problem in the security industry where we don't automate as much as we should because that would minimize the value of our services. But the reality is there's so much new stuff going on all the time, especially when you get into the APT space. Yeah. You would have told me in 2014 that I'd be center stage in an investigation affecting the presidential election. I'd be like, you're out of your mind. And then 2016 happened, and that's exactly where I was.
Yep. Yeah. Now, to that end, well, I want to get back to APTs in a little bit here, but going back to sort of job role things, we've talked about a lot of different tasks and roles and hats to wear that you have over your professions. So my usual stock question is, what is your average day like? But that's obviously going to be tricky since I imagine it changes a lot from day to day. So let me ask this instead: what is your ideal work day? What combination of the things you're involved with do you like to do most in a day? And now knowing your disdain for boredom, what does a day's activity look like that ends with you coming home and saying to your family, that was a really good day?
Yeah. I would say, minimal amount of Zoom.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's the world we're in now, and I get it, but I hate it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, it would vary. I don't know how you'd slice up a specific day, right? There's different aspects. I mean, one of the nice things, at least this stage of my career and where we are in the industry, is kind of the conference circuit of seeing, hey, what other people are doing. There's just not much of that going on right now.
Yeah, of course.
For these reasons, which kind of sucks, right? But that's usually a day-long thing or multi-days, right? So I've done the Black Hat DEF CON thing most years of the past 5 or 6.
Yep.
I mean, even RSA, which we don't think of really as a real security conference, it's a trade show. Hopefully no one from RSA is listening, where I just got blacklisted from ever speaking again. Yeah. But all of my people are there, right? And a lot more, right? And to say, hey, what are you working on that's new? Because like I said, human being finite. There's only so much I can find, or who I can work with to collaborate to tackle interesting problems. Yep. So, if I can get to some end result of something. So I've done a lot of cryptocurrency research of neo-Nazi groups. And to clarify what I mean by neo-Nazi, I mean using swastikas and saying Heil Hitler.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Versus somebody whose politics I don't like, who have been tied to violent activity, right? And trying to say, okay, how can we, I'd have helped get judgments against them, right? Because there've been lawsuits. Now, how can we extract money out of them to victims? I'll feel much better when I can succeed. And nobody's really figured out that problem aside of like the Secret Service rolling everybody up and just taking their crap.
Right.
So,
yeah, I mean, do you see any sort of, can you even see a sort of a path into that direction? Like, is it a matter of like, it could happen if X, Y, and Z happen, or you're like, I don't know. We're
trying to figure out what X, Y, and Z look like. Okay. So I like having new problems and trying to figure out, okay, how's the path to solve this? So there's a notion of imposter syndrome that several people talk about. The reality is at a strict level, we're all imposters. Right. If we knew how to solve the problem, we'd script it and move on.
Yeah.
Right. We're dealing with problems that nobody knows the answer to. Yep. Certainly not a complete answer. And we're all figuring it out as we go. And by the time we think we might figure it out, somebody's introduced new technology or new risks that now we need to figure out.
Yeah.
So on one hand, it's people like, oh, I don't know what the answer is. But, once you kind of get past it, no one really knows what the answers are. Then it's like, okay, I've got a big problem and grind on it and hopefully solve it. So I guess a good day would be, I've solved a big problem. I've identified specifically who bad guy is. I've figured out some new technique, new defense, new way to detect something, new way to achieve some security outcome, detect what the PRC is doing to the Uyghur Muslims, pick whatever, right? It's, once there's an outcome, I could deliver something for some marginal value for broader society. I mean,
yeah.
I have a day job, right? Have my own business. I got to deliver value to my clients. I get that, right? That puts food on the table. But, what makes me excited is figuring out some way to deliver at least some marginal value to society writ large.
Yeah. Well, to that end, can you talk about some of the main security threats or threat actors that you're currently researching and dealing with? And like what trends or threat actors or whatever are keeping you awake at night right now?
I like the General Mattis response to the what keeps you awake at night, where he says, nothing, I keep other people awake at night. But the reality is there's not much fear I can instill into anybody.
Yeah.
So I mean, at this point, I'm kind of numb to the reality is like, people are stealing and killing everywhere in the world, all hours of the day. All I can do is try to marginally make that better for whatever sphere of influence that I have. Ransomware is something I've been dealing with for 8 years, right? It's something we're still going to be dealing with for a while. Now it's a lot of policy discussions of the camp of, hey, let's never pay ransoms. And I'm probably the exception to that rule of saying that policy is stupid and it's going to lead to dead bodies.
Yeah.
So if you're going to use never, which is a moral word, you need to answer, okay, how many dead bodies are you willing to tolerate for that moral imperative? Nobody likes that because, it's just money. Well, not when it involves a hospital or power grids or a subset of circumstances, because we have attributed deaths to ransomware infections.
Yeah.
There's lots of crime just directed at normal people, right? Of romance scams where there's not much that happened to people, right? And it was kind of an abstraction until recently, right? Now newly divorced. So it's like, okay, it's how people are dating is now more relevant to my life. But people get lonely, especially in the pandemic. And then you've got people who extract tons of money, their life savings, and there's no one to make them whole. There's no insurance policy they can buy. Yes. And the bank says, hey, you wired $100,000 to Nigeria. Sorry. And then there's some more virulent varieties of now I've got intimate pictures and sexting that I can use for blackmail. And we saw, at least with the Ashley Madison breach, that ended with suicides.
Yes.
So, I mean, we're moving into a world where death is an outcome.
Yeah.
Not a good outcome, obviously. Versus 10 years ago, it's like, okay, credit card fraud is bad. I'm not going to say it's good. Right. But when's the last time anybody has had to pay for a fraudulent credit card transaction?
Exactly. Yeah.
Most of the time now, it's like, I've had, I don't know, maybe a dozen credit cards compromised.
Yeah.
It's just,
it is not the sort of like, week long disaster that it once was. You call your bank and they put a freeze and sometimes they even reverse the charge, and the worst thing that happens is you have, negative $250 to Nike that never goes through or whatever.
Right. The biggest inconvenience I've ever had with that is that I'm overseas, so I can't get a new credit card.
Yeah.
And I've got to figure out what to use.
A week of waiting for your debit card. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, right. So, it's I've always used credit cards and not debit cards for transactions, so I don't have to worry about that hassle. But it's a minor hassle. I could deal with it all online. Half the time, I've got a new credit card. Okay, snip. Here's the new one. Fine. Yeah. Trade secret theft is a thing, but if you care, that's really a company problem. I won't say it's not significant, right? Because I am paid to protect other people's trade secrets. But that's just stealing information is just, it happens. It doesn't, it's impactful, but, it's dealt with, right? Until recently, I steered away from APT work because espionage is espionage, right? We've been dealing with that for thousands of years. Right. There is no end game to that. Our end game is we caught somebody, we send them a PNG and kick them out of the country, and they send a new spy in. That's just the circle of geopolitics. There's no end game to that versus at least in cybercrime, maybe I can get somebody arrested.
Yep. Yeah. And I think that goes to what you were saying about, forensics is more than just tools. Like if you're interested in computer forensics, you have to be interested in forensics and it just as a thing rather than like, this isn't like the cool side. It's just a different tool to do, like you said, something that's thousands of years old. And you have to decide whether that root thing is interesting to you rather than the sort of cyber spin on it. Right.
Well, yeah, no, definitely. Like forensics is about law. And like I said, I taught a year-long class in forensics at law and CS class. Spend 6 weeks on the law. And one of the things I drilled home is, we're talking about Black Lives Matter and criminal justice reform now. If you're in forensics, right, you're almost always working for the prosecution. You're on the powerful side of a very unbalanced power dynamic, especially when you're dealing with criminal matters. Right. So that kind of led to me volunteering to do work for public defenders. Is 2 days ago, I picked up a murder kidnapping case where I'm just doing my analysis of what the police did, of the computer evidence involved of that case. So it's something to keep in mind is that some of the stuff that we enter into is actually part of the political discussion when you think about it. Oh, yeah. If you care about criminal justice reform, then you really need to care about getting your analysis right in forensics because 99% of the time you're just not challenged. So if you say boo, everybody believes you're right. So unless you're willing to volunteer for the defense side, you damn well better be right.
Yes. Man, well put. Yeah, this is a great discussion. I want to kind of circle it back into cybersecurity, but I really enjoyed the sort of ethics of this. So, from a threat researcher's perspective, can you talk about some things that the cybersecurity industry isn't addressing or isn't taking seriously enough at the moment that makes you want to kind of shake everyone and say, "Why are you letting this slide?"
Well, I think I made reference to like romance scams generally, right? Because when you think threat research, it's almost always vendors. Yeah. So somebody's got to be paying the bill.
Yep.
Right. And that's just the nature of a free market economy. Fine. I get it. But there's a whole lot of threat landscape where there just isn't anybody. So threat research in terms of like the work Citizen Lab does with NSO and others, the work some EFF does, and Eva Galperin with stalkerware. There's lots of threats out there that are effectively unaddressed, right? There's an ad hoc group that I can't point to an organization that deals with business email compromise, but romance scams are a part of that.
Okay.
Which is more money going out the door than there is for ransomware.
Yeah.
So, I mean, by dollars, it's more impactful. But I mean, if I steal from a company, they probably have insurance. I'm not going to say it's fun. I'm not going to say you don't have to deal with it. But insured threat, I mean, the whole point of insurance is to deal with a threat. When you deal with taking somebody's life savings, and I've just had a handful of pro bono clients is I can't do anything for them, right? You know, I got to talk about this is what happened and whatever. But, you know, there was some elderly lady who, you know, her lawyer got business email compromised, sent a down payment for a house that got redirected. And sorry, your extra life savings, that was your retirement. And I could tell her how she got screwed, but I can't do anything about it because, well, there's nobody paying that bill.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to solve that problem except contributing some measure of my time for pro bono work.
Okay.
And encouraging others to do so because pick anything that you're interested in any group.
Yeah.
Right? You got school kids, speak to a PTA about how to monitor your kid's cell phone and how to deal with sexting in schools and bullying. Right? I mean, there's, especially after the pandemic, so much of our life is lived online to where there's no protection.
Yeah.
Like I'm not a big like cheerleader for Facebook, but in the last year or so, they put together a team to say, you know what, we're going to protect our users while they're on our platform instead of just protecting our platform.
Right.
You know, realizing that this is a captive portal. So there's some measure of responsibility we have. Good on them. I think they should do more, but there's lots of people out there that are just like, whatever, you're not the customer, you're the product being sold. So, you know,
can you talk about some of like, you know, like you said, you can volunteer anywhere, but do you have any particular organizations or starting places for people who want to sort of contribute their effort to sort of pushing back the tide?
Well, I mean, like I said, there's some groups I mentioned. I don't know Citizen Lab takes volunteers. I know EFF does have a network of people that'll connect you to things. Yeah. Even in forensics, right? I picked up a couple of pro bono forensics cases through the EFF that I've helped out with. You know, beyond that, it's almost local groups.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like you don't have to go out somewhere else to go find something. Right. It's just look around in your own circle and you're going to find things. Yes. Right. You know, if you have kids and you're involved with a PTA, there's something you do about cyberbullying, stalking, all the threats to children. You know, if you like elderly, there's, you know, go to a nursing home or, you know, an elderly support group or an elder abuse hotline. If cyber stalking is your concern, there's crisis pregnancy centers and crisis residential centers for women in transition or even men who face similar threats. You know, it's, you know, if there's a social cause that you care about or a social group you're part of, odds are there's a cybersecurity concern, right? Yeah. That you can go to, right? Is generally I don't pro bono my time to companies who can pay me, you know, because, well, you've got money and, you know, you need to go figure out your books so that you pay appropriately. But, you know, you've got lots of civic groups. I mean, there's Rotary societies, right? Anything that you know, you're building your social security or social network in the community you're in, opportunities will find you, right? Yeah. If you're getting, well, I'd say if you're getting out of the house, depending on where you are and where we are in the pandemic, that might be hard. But, you know, almost everybody has some network, you know, close to them or their interest level where they can be involved.
Yeah, I've had that image in my head since talking to Emily Miller about infrastructure security and how many sort of local municipalities and city governments and stuff have just appalling lack of security. And, of course, the Oldsmar water case is like the perfect example of that. But, I feel like there could be this kind of sort of new volunteerism that you speak of, where people are not only, doing their job well and putting food on the table, but also contributing those skills towards, this unbelievably huge field of sort of unsecured things and unsecured people and safety compromised people and so forth.
Right. I said, actually, I think of like vulnerability research is your thing. There's I am the cavalry. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's this notion, right? Is okay, somebody else needs to fix it. There ain't nobody else.
Yeah.
My problem, one of the problems I face is, it's just like people know I volunteer time, and there's only so much time I have, right?
Yes.
And I'm also kind of a sucker for cases where, if it's not me, there ain't nobody else.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't give my time to, say, the city of Chicago. They're a big enough city with enough money,
right?
But a rural town, and I live in a rural community that's population 9,000.
Yeah.
Okay, right. There's only so much money to go around. You've got to be big enough to be able to get started, right? But there's lots of small stuff in there. You can involve your local chamber if you care about SMB issues.
Yeah,
find a local chamber of commerce, farm bureau, right? Whatever interests you happen to be there. And like I said, there's probably some measure of people who need help or need advice or need something. Church groups, another avenue. Whatever your social circle is,
right?
I'm sure there's somebody not too far from it that could, help plug you into people in need or institutions or organizations.
Yeah. Do it.
Go ahead.
I say just do what you have to do, but also do a little more on the side if you can.
Yeah,
and
make your patch of this rock we call planet Earth marginally better. We don't fix problems, but we can help individuals have somewhat of a better experience.
Absolutely. So let's talk about how we sort of train the next generation of people to do that. There's a lot of gradations of careers and jobs relating to all of these jobs: threat researcher, threat intelligence, incident response. So for folks who are interested in the sort of really taking the fight to the cyber criminals, as you say, and sort of shutting down ransom networks and stuff, what types of skills, knowledge, or experience should they be acquiring to make them desirable people hiring for that type of work?
Gotcha. So, like I said, I would argue that having a broad base of understanding of technology really helps. Okay. It's not strictly required.
Yep.
But it really makes you more effective, in the out years.
Yeah.
Basic barrier of entry is at least have some digital forensics or malware reverse engineering skills. Mm-hmm. Because ultimately, it's the starting point is either some piece of malware or some network incident that needs to be dug into, going back and digging backwards.
Yeah,
there's a couple of online courses and other things that'll teach you open source intelligence in cybersecurity to go through all of the various tools. Some paid, some free. Right? There's lots of free resources out there. Abuse.ch does a lot of stuff and has some information. URLscan.io. I forget the name of the GitHub, but there's an amazing threat intelligence little GitHub, but it's really just a list of stuff. Okay. And it really depends on what you're interested in research, right? There's resources if you're interested in industrial or OT systems. There's things of malware. There's things of threat intelligence proper. There's things of various social engineering type intelligence. So you pick something that interests you, right? The advantage we have in this industry is that there's so many things you can do. Find whatever you're interested in. There's no reason to not be really passionate about something you're researching.
Yeah.
Because there's always something, right? If you care about healthcare, plenty of healthcare stuff, but lots of healthcare. Okay, right? If you care about educational and K-12, all sorts of systems being put in there, right? And unique risks.
Yeah, I think the thing that I want to kind of keep reiterating to people is that there's no downside to specializing in something. We hear so many things of like, well, should I learn about Windows 10 vulnerabilities? Because what if I don't have to use it or whatever? It's like there's no downside to learning. And I think that seems to be one of the things that keeps coming up again and again is what if I put all this time into learning this one thing and then I don't want to do it? It's like, well, then do something else.
Right. And the core skills and mentality you're developing, learning something else will help you learn the next thing. And there's no wasted time, right? You're learning something new, you're developing, and things have a tendency of coming back around. Right. I was about to remove the entire concept of worms from my courses. When's the last time we saw a worm before WannaCry? And then WannaCry happened. It's like, oh, I guess worms are still a thing, because guess what? We still haven't learned the lessons of not putting, SMB internet facing in healthcare environments, looking at you, NHS. IoT security. The problems in IoT security are the same things that we had in Linux and Windows security in the late 90s and early turn of the century. It's just that new companies started making devices, and their experience was in manufacturing, not in hardening operating systems. So they reintroduced things that more or less were solved. Telnet was a dead protocol. And then Mirai happened. So even if things aren't valuable, in the next 6 months, like I said, there's kind of a cyclical nature of things where if you extract away kind of the very deep level stuff about, say, Windows 10, some of the fundamental realities will still be there come Windows 15 or whatever Microsoft will call it. Right. People, in 95, right, smashing the stack for fun and profit was a big thing. 26 years later, we still have buffer overflows, but you strip away memory manipulation, we still can't safely process inputs. It's the same problem that goes into SQL injection. It's the same problem that goes into the various attacks in machine learning. It's all input validation off of untrusted data. And 3 decades on, where are we? We just introduced new ways to suck instead of solving the old ways of sucking. But the old ways of sucking are still kind of there.
So conversely, there's a lot of people who might want to contribute to this industry, but might be not so keen on being directly in the crosshairs of actual cyber criminals and stuff. So can you talk about some adjacent careers around this type of work that don't make you cybercrime public enemy number one, be it, let's say, threat modeling or incident response or other related jobs?
Sure. I would just say up front, it's very rare that I have observed any targeting of me based on what I do. I very publicly kicked neo-Nazis. Yeah, okay, they threatened me a little bit, but fine. I'd researched some Russian and Chinese stuff. They did some stuff, caught them, whatever. It's all very low level. No one in our industry is going to get a polonium green tea at a cafe anytime soon.
Right.
There's a subset of things that could get you in the crosshairs, but it's pretty obvious of what those are. By and large, most people don't have any significant risk. I mean, unless you're developing high-level 0 days, which are useful for intelligence agencies, but even that problem is dealable. You step into that space and you're taking a look at. And if that's uncomfortable for you, then think about being in a different space. There's a whole lot of research that just nobody really cares about, right? In terms of that kind of targeting. But threat modeling is ultimately, we think of cybersecurity as a technical problem. It's really a human problem. But the most you can do in a business is manage risk. Is if you tell me, hey, here's a blank check, I want all the security, you're going to get a high dollar amount. But very few people can pay that, right? If you're working for a small business or a medium-sized business, there's only so much you can do, right? So threat modeling is understanding attacks and threats at a general level and being like, hey, to give you an example, ransomware is essentially an availability problem. Availability and business continuity. It's you take all the stuff you learn in the CISSP, you strip away data center fires and natural disasters and swap in ransomware. Ultimately, it's the same kind of response strategy is how do I get back up and running quickly? The problem is that backups haven't evolved in 40 years because we're still using tape. Right. But at its core, it's the same.
But you could be one of those people that's pushing that technology forward. Yeah.
Right. If you're a medium-sized business to say, hey, what are we going to do about ransomware? It's going to be like, I need to have a plan to replicate my AD somewhere else and get essential business operations running in a different facility in a different cloud somehow. Right. Instead of saying, oh, I'm going to buy this endpoint and this thing, and here's your $3 million worth of budget that I need, is finding easier ways to do that. And threat modeling is like, okay, I've got only this much to work with, What do I spend my time on? Right.
Okay.
There's, and I'll tell you, it's like with threat modeling, right? Of an observation of just looking at recent APT ransomware, a handful of attacks. If an organization just can manage PowerShell, you would solve so many of your problems. And by manage, it's like log it, make sure all PowerShell scripts are signed, that you're managing the keys of signatures, because almost everywhere in the chain of a modern attack, somebody's using PowerShell that's unrestricted, which means, the attackers use PowerShell the same reason we do. Yeah. We've got a lot of stuff to manage, right? Yep. They want to manage all of our stuff too, just not for availability and confidentiality.
Right.
So I said, if you're looking at that stuff, and that's just a lot of reading. All right. There's dozens of security research companies that publish blogs and PDFs, and you read all this and you start gleaning insights to say, hey, I'm a medium-sized business. I can't afford FireEye and CrowdStrike and all the big name vendors.
Yep.
But you know what? I can click on these GPO settings and manage my PowerShell. Okay. Is it 100%? No, but it's a lot better than not doing it. And it doesn't cost anything aside of time and effort and engineering, right? It's all internal cost versus PO cost.
Right.
Yeah.
So looking to the future, I mean, we talked about the sort of depressing trudge of history and the 30 years of things not changing demonstrably in terms of threats and just finding different ways. But do you have any sort of predictions for how sort of threat hunting and threat research will be in 5 to 10 years?
I think at a high level, it's substantially the same. Bad guys are going to still do bad things, and we're going to need to figure out what they're doing and try to protect things.
Right.
I think the things that will change, are really outside the security space proper. The geopolitical trends of less stability and congeniality between the various power polars in the world impacts things. And can impact things because we've seen a lot of destructive attacks waged when geopolitical tensions are high. So the higher they get, the more we're going to see things like kicking over power grids not for fun and profit, but for patriotism or lulls.
Tactical moves. Yeah.
Yeah. We're adopting technology in so many areas of life where we're inventing new risks. Come 9/11, I hated the term cyber terrorism. 20 years ago. It's like, it's not a thing. There's nothing I can do with a computer in 2001 that creates debilitating fear in society, right? There's malware, there's lots of bad things. That isn't to say it's a bad thing, but it's not terrorism.
Right.
With self-driving cars that are connected on 5G networks, if you don't get that right, and I start driving cars into each other in a major metropolitan area, then all of a sudden people are afraid to start going in cars and society grinds to a halt. Right. Those are the kind of things, the world we're creating is that, cyber terrorism was a funding term in 2001. Now it's a reality we're creating in 2021.
Yep.
Now the barrier of entry that is high, and not to be overly alarmist, it's not like any Tom, Dick, and Harry could do that.
Yeah.
But there's a whole new class of risks that we're introducing as we've taken computers from just IT to cyber physical systems. Right now, you can do things in the physical world, and there's a whole lot of harms that I don't think we're prepared to deal with in that world.
Do you have any advice for dealing with those harms in the world?
I mean, ultimately, anytime somebody wants to put technology into something, somebody's got to do a risk assessment, right? And I guess one important skill to have, which is I don't know how to develop it. I've told my students this, is to have a non-weaponized criminal mind. So one exercise I do to one of my classes, first lecture is somebody name for me some neat new technology, and somebody create something. Okay. Now, how would you kill somebody with it? And everybody's like, no, I'm not joking. I want you to come up with a plan to commit murder and mayhem.
Wow.
And if you can't do that, you could still have a pretty lucrative career in security, right? There's lots of work to be done. But, to do risk modeling is to be able to credibly tell an organization that wants to do X is like, these are the bad things that can happen. And hopefully here are the things you can do to mitigate or otherwise eliminate that risk. And hopefully people believe you. or you get them to sign a risk acceptance form that you put in your safe at home so that when something bad happens, you could say, I told you so, don't sue me.
Yeah, leave it. Yeah.
Yeah, here's my CYA. Yeah, I may or may not have a CYA safe at home.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. So we're coming up on the hour here, and I could talk to you for 4 more. This has been a fascinating discussion. Thank you. But as we wrap up today, can you tell us a little bit about Bambenek Consulting and what services you offer to your customers?
Sure. Bambenek Consulting predominantly produces threat feeds. So I track a lot of malware families and created this unique model for DNS surveillance to then give that data to customers to just block threats. And the same thing to Quad 9s, because the idea, at least my idea is, there's so much noise. Let's just block the known stuff and focus on the unknown stuff.
Okay. So one last question for all the beans. If our listeners want to learn more about John Bambenek, where can they go online?
I'm on Twitter at Bambenek, LinkedIn, all the various social media sites.
Great.
You can learn some more about Netenrich, the company I work for, at netenrich.com as well.
Talk about them too. Yeah.
Netenrich is a NetOps and security ops company. So two different forms provide a platform to focus on outcomes. So instead of just saying, here, I'm going to generate lots of alerts, try to get to the point is like, I'm going to make you more secure or detect threats quicker so that you can respond quicker. So there's lots of a platform that we've got for that to really hopefully speed up and make more efficient a company's security team.
And where can people find Netenrich?
Netenrich.com, Netenrich.com.
Perfect. John, thank you so much for your time and insights today. This was amazing.
Thank you.
And thanks, as always, to everyone who is listening and watching at home or at work. New episodes of the CyberWork podcast are available every Monday at 1 p.m. Central, both on video at our YouTube page and on audio wherever fine podcasts are downloaded. I'm excited to announce that our Infosec Skills platform will be releasing a new challenge every month with 3 hands-on labs to put your cyber skills to the test. Each month, you'll build a new skill ranging from secure coding to penetration testing to advanced persistent threats and everything in between. Plus, we're giving away more than $1,000 worth of prizes each month. Just go to infosecinstitute.com/challenge and get started right now. Thank you once again to John Bambenek, and thank you all so much for watching and listening. We will speak to you next week.